very excited to bring you a very talented panel today to help you understand how to create amazing resumes in Canva and how to ace the whole job application process. So we have with us today Emily, Jordi, and Hannah, who I'm very excited to welcome into Canva Space to share their expertise with you. So without further ado, maybe you would like to introduce yourselves. Over to you, Emily.
Hi, so I'm Emily. I'm a recruiter here at Canva. I've been here for around 18 months or so now. I mainly hire for our product management team. I've absolutely loved seeing the journey that Canva's been on over the last 18 months, from only 17 PMs when I first joined to over 50 PMs now. So it's been an awesome journey, and I'm really excited to share some tips with you today on how to build that perfect resume. Over to Hannah.
Hey everyone, it's really, really lovely to be here. Thank you for joining us. I'm Hannah. I've been at Canva for 4 years this month. I'm a product designer working inside the editor most of the time, working on all the new features and improvements to make Canva a better experience. Jordi.
Hi, thanks for having me. So I'm Jordi and I'm a motion designer here at Canva. I've been here for almost a year, very close. I help animate all of our ads for Canva.
So we'll hear a bit more from Hannah and Jordi in a moment, but let's learn a little bit more about Canva. So Canva is a free online design tool. You can visit canva.com and start designing without even having to sign in. But for today's presentation, we'll be using our Pro product. But Canva is more than just a product. We're a company with a very ambitious mission to empower the whole world to design. We're doing okay so far with over 50 million monthly active users. We've been doubling every year in every country, and we're available now in over 100 languages. Today, you'll learn how to master your content to excite recruiters, design tips and tricks to create that perfect resume. We'll also dive into the exciting world of video resumes and walk you through managing the application and interview process. So we'll jump straight in and explore what recruiters look for when your CV lands on their desk. Before we go in though, how long do you think on average recruiters look at a resume before making a decision on a candidate? So this is, of course, an industry average that recruiters are just spending 6 seconds reviewing a resume before making a decision on a candidate. Like I said, of course, this is an industry average. It isn't true for all employers, but this number highlights the importance of having the right content in your resume to grab a recruiter's attention, which is the first step, obviously, to landing that perfect role. So your resume is the first thing that a recruiter and your dream company are going to learn from you. So it's really important that you are maximizing the power of this first impression. It can be really challenging to balance showing your professional experience with some of your personality. And it's really tough to summarize everything there is to know about you in just a few pages. So we'll go through my top tips on what to include in your resume to give you the best chance of getting recruiters excited, standing out from the crowd, and eventually snagging that role at your dream company. So my first tip is to start with a clean slate. It can be really tempting to jump into Canva and choose a template and start focusing on the fonts, layout, and colors. But this is all a lot easier to do once we know exactly what we'll be including. So start with a blank page and begin listing your recent roles, experiences, and biggest achievements. If you're like me, I find it a little bit challenging to think of my experiences and my achievements off the top of my head. So start broad. And then as you get into the flow of things, you can start to edit things out. But starting broad kind of helps you to get into that flow of talking about yourself and listing some of these achievements. Tip 2 is to talk impact over responsibilities. You only have a few pages to communicate your experiences, so don't focus on the day-to-day. You don't want your resume to read like a job description. At Canva, each recruiter specializes in a certain area. So in my case, I hire purely for our product management team. So that means I see hundreds of product resumes each and every week. So I know exactly what a PM does day to day. So what really catches my attention is seeing results, impact, projects, and their outcomes. You don't want to list your responsibilities. So don't list your responsibilities like user research, data analysis, and product discovery. You want to talk to specific examples or times when you demonstrated these skills and what the outcome was. So for example, through analysis of user churn, I recommended all of these amazing changes to our landing pages, which led to 1,000% increase in signups. Tip 3 is to tailor your resume to the role you're applying for. Each role that you apply for will be completely different to the next. And every business has different values, is at different stages of maturity, and has different goals and expectations of the people that they hire. A startup, for example, would most likely value someone agile who's comfortable navigating ambiguity, whereas a larger, more established organization may take preference as someone who's more process-driven and might look at different achievements in a different light on paper. So it's really important you're carefully reading the roles posting and do your research on the company and their values, and then use that information to decide which achievements you'd like to highlight. Tip 4 is keep it short and punchy. I was really shocked to read that stat earlier that on average recruiters are spending 6 seconds looking at resumes before making a decision. Of course, it's an industry average, but it is a really good reminder to keep things laser focused and think of your resume like a highlights reel or a trailer, and definitely not the full movie. The sweet spot, in my opinion, is a max of 2 pages. Don't be shy to add a bit of you. So your resume is a reflection of you. Use any and every opportunity to sprinkle in your true self, your style, and your personality. When you're thinking about how to do this, think of all the things that you would tell your family and friends if they asked about your work experience. What are the things that make you proud? It doesn't just have to be professional or paid working experience either. It's awesome to talk about the particular businesses that you've supported, projects you've led, the tangible results that you've had, and the impact that you've had on the business and teams, and any promotions. But it's also important to share other projects like university clubs that you ran, nonprofits or side hustles that you might have helped build. And so to add to this, have you Googled yourself recently? Your online presence is an extension of your resume. It can be a really powerful tool to elaborate on things that didn't make the cut for your resume. It's always a good idea to do a quick sense check on your social media privacy settings before embarking on a job search to make sure you're presenting yourself in the best possible light online. Take some time to refresh and update your LinkedIn, applying a similar logic to your resume. Be sure to add keywords so that you're findable. Turn your emails on and switch your settings to open to opportunities. If you have a portfolio, website, or a key case study that you'd like to share, make sure that it's easy to access by the recruiter and add it to your bio for even more accessibility. So to summarize, start with a blank page, starting broad and narrowing down as you edit. Recruiters see hundreds of resumes each week, and we know the day-to-day. So use this opportunity to talk about impact and achievements. Be selective, cherry picking the types of achievements to suit the role that you're applying for. And don't be afraid to let your personality shine through, both on your resume and online. So now that you know what to put into your resume, it's time to pass over to Hannah to put all of this together into creating an awesome looking document that represents you perfectly.
All right, I'd love you guys to meet Lee. He's going to be my hypothetical test case for today. He's going to show you how to design that perfect resume using all my design tips and tricks. My hypothetical test case, Lee, is working in his first paid job in marketing. He's been there for a couple of years and he's learned a lot in this role, but he's really excited to have a more creative position. He's seen a few things advertised lately that he'd really like to apply for. But the first thing before he launches into applying, as Emily said, he wants to make sure he has a really killer resume that showcases him as a creative marketer. The first thing he does is list out all his competencies and experience into a list. This isn't about design at all. He just wants to make sure that he includes everything that's important. I think this is a really good place to start before you launch into what it's going to look like, what colors you'll use. So here I've listed out all of his skills, like his personal skills, also his the experience with software he has, which will be really important in his role, some of his personal interests and his volunteering, really important how they might get in touch with him, and then his job experience. So he's had his current role here, and he's got his first sort of work experience was an internship after his degree in marketing. So all this is laid out. He's made sure all the dates are correct. He's checked it for spelling before he starts designing, before he gets into Canva and starts looking for just the right template. So he's also included some things about himself to show his personality. And as Emily said, there's a really great way to sort of find alignment with the right kind of company you want to work with. It shows your passions and demonstrates some of your own values that you find important. And included in his contact, I've put here, because he's a creative guy and that's what he really wants to get across. He's included his Instagram, his photography Instagram handle, and where you might find more about him on a personal side. So he's got a blog, so he's included that as well. All right, so once he's got everything planned out, he wants to go looking for just the right template. So I've started one already. I'll zoom in a little bit. So once you've got everything you want to communicate, we go looking for a template. You need to think about how much text you have and what content you want to include. And you also want to show some of your personality and creativity. We have artistic and colorful templates with illustrative flourishes and beautiful little graphics. But we also have more formal and traditional templates for resumes that might be more suitable for your industry. I've got a whole bunch that I've been sort of looking around and playing with, and I've decided for Lee, I think this one here would be super appropriate. So this is a great starting point. It's quite simple, but it's also modern, and it is a little bit creative. And I think we can work to give it some personality as well. To save watching me cut and paste all that information from the first list to the second, I've done a little cooking show. Here's one I prepared. So the only thing I've done, I haven't changed anything layout related or design related, but I've put in Lee's information. So he's put in everything he needed over 2 pages. And then we will get to adapting it with some key design principles. So the first thing I want to talk about is note how I've organized this information. On the first page is what really matters: his work experience, his key skills, and a tiny blurb. And of course, his contact information. And then on the second page is more of his personal interests, his software experience, his education, and any extra courses he's done. This information is important, but it's probably only relevant if he meets the criteria the recruiter's checking for, and then they'll keep reading. When it comes to Lee's contact information, because I've divided it over 2 pages, I think we can afford to put it on both sides, which I think is nice. It means that no matter what page the recruiter is reading, that key information is always visible. When it comes to layout, think again about what makes this as easy as possible to scan over those 6 seconds. I would possibly make some of this text a little bit larger, and especially on this first page where the text is a little, it's a bit heavier in text, I would space it out a bit. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to make the line spacing, let's try 1.8. 1.7, let's do. And I make sure to do it consistently over all similar boxes. The other thing I'd like to show you is this has a beautiful, very rigid vertical 2-column layout. And I really want to stay with that. As I move things around, I want to make sure I'm not accidentally misaligning things. So we have this feature here that we can show the grids. I've already put a couple in some key places. And these will mean if I move things around, I can keep making sure that these snap to exactly the right place. So I'm going to do a couple more changes to the spacing. I'll make sure it's consistent on the next page too. And this might seem like a little detail, but I think the overall look will be way more professional and polished if all these little details are very consistent. So I won't do it to these because these already have a line between them, as you can see, but I do want to apply it to these areas just to make them easier to read. What else will I do? I'm going to move. Oh, I have another tip for you about this alignment. So It's a really valuable little trick we have in Canva is that if I select a text box, I press the Option key on my keyboard, I can measure the negative space between each. And I want to always make sure these are exactly the same. So there's 3 pixels between here, 3 pixels between here. I'm going to move this one down as a box, move this bar that was part of the original template, which I think is a really nice tool to sort of divide these areas. And I want to make sure all these negative spaces are the same, that I haven't accidentally moved something. Cool. And then also the space between here should be the same as well. So this is 1.2. That's only 1. What's this one? 7. So I'm all over the place. So let's make it 1. Group that together so it's easy to use, and it's 1.2 right now. I'll make it 1. Okay, that's looking way tidier. I'll also move this bar like I did on the prior screen to divide these 2 sections. And what's my space? Let's make that 1 as well. Be really fussy about this spacing. What have they got here? I'll take out that line. The spacing here is exactly 1. The spacing here is 0.9. Perfectly aligned. I'll zoom out a bit so you can see the whole page. All right, I think that's looking really, really tidy. Okay, the next thing I'll do, I think, is add a little bit of visual interest. It's still very text heavy. And I think there's some opportunity here, especially in these lists, to make them a bit more interesting. I could use bullet points, or I think it would be quite fun that you can see in some of our other templates is have little infographics that sort of give a little measure or value to each of these skills. So if I go to charts in Canva Pro, there's all these options for visually demonstrating some data. So I'm going to do it with these cute little ones. So I'm going to make them a scale of 5 like this. And I'll zoom in so it's a bit easier to see. And I think instead of little people, I want, what do I want? I want little fires. They're cute. And then I want to make sure that they align with the color palette that I'm using. So I'm going to make them blue. And then, because it's a scale out of 5, I'm going to say his creative skills are 4 out of 5. And then I can choose the secondary color as well, which I think I'll make a gray like that. And of course, that'll be a little bit different. What I will do is find something to anchor against to make that really strong vertical line. So I'm going to use this box to guide me. And I'm going to align all of these with the text like this. Now I have to do a little bit of adjusting to make sure they align with not only the space between them, but the line that they are supposed to sit with. So this might take a little bit of fiddly, but you get the idea that you can start to really make them look quite interesting with these little tools. So these rulers up here are turned off and on from in here. Show rulers, turn them off, turn them on. And then the guides are totally movable. And to make a new one, you just pull it from the top or from the side. And to delete them, you just drag them back into that gutter over there. Cool, they're looking nice and aligned. I'll just check that last one. Awesome. I think they look really cute. And of course I would change them, like his organization skills might be 100% and his multitasking might be slightly lower. So you'd switch it around. What I'm going to do is grab them all. Oops. Group them and apply them to the next page because I think they'd look just as cool. Oh, it didn't work. Sorry, everyone. I'm going to copy them. Paste them and put them, because my alignment is all perfect, they will completely align on this page as well. Just to test, I'll line them up. And if I move them, they will all align with each of those key competencies. So I think that's looking really cool. I still think it could be a bit more interesting. One thing I will do is I will add something to the top here. I'll add a rectangle, I think, behind his, I'll add a rectangle behind his name. You can see how I've got this really rigid, quite tidy margin all the way around the outside, but then these two elements at the top sort of break out of that. To make them feel a little bit more anchored, I'm going to put the rectangle behind. I just press the R button on my keyboard and it makes a rectangle for me, which I can move however I like. And I'm going to color it. I think this would also look quite cool in maybe, I don't know, it could look really cool in a yellow as well if you wanted to go kind of bright, but I'm going to keep it minimal. Let's do the same gray. I think that's nice. And to keep it interesting, I might sort of offset it a bit. I think that's quite cool. And so I'm going to take these three elements and make sure they're perfectly the same here. Awesome. I'll take those guides off so you can see it better. I think that is a very nice resume. What else would I say? My last tips were, what was my last one? Oh, my last one was the rectangle, which I think really did add something. So sort of gives it a real header to the top. So there you have a modern, simple, quite easy to scan layout that I hope Emily agrees is easy for a recruiter to digest quickly, and a well-designed resume.
Absolutely. I love that the skills have been laid out so clearly also. It does make for such easy readability and for us to go directly to those skills, particularly if there are systems that are listed in the job description, then they are awesome to list there. And fantastic that there are, 3 or 4 key impactful projects or impacts listed under each role. Like I said, we recommend 2 pages. That doesn't mean to shrink the font as small as you can and fit everything on those 2 pages. It means to really refine what you're including and make sure you are including the most impactful pieces. So love it.
Yeah, cool. The other thing that Emily touched on, which I think was a really good point to make, is considering that bigger picture. We're focused on how you can make this resume represent you, but what happens if the recruiter does really like you? What else would they like to know? So when they go looking for more information about you, this is an opportunity to think about that whole story you're telling about yourself. So if you're thinking of, you add your website or your portfolio or social media handles, make sure the brand that you're, representing yourself is really consistent across these channels. So very easily, I could turn, say, this area here into a LinkedIn banner that sort of has this really nice flow on. So I've put one together just with those 3 elements, 4 elements. I've used the blue bar, the job he's looking for, his name, and this gray thing into a layout already. And it took me 2 seconds just to cut and paste it into a LinkedIn banner that was also a template on Canva. One other thing I have added is this little circle here. It must be very subtle. I'll turn it up. There's a circle I put here just to measure exactly on LinkedIn where my profile would go. So I know that nothing really, really important like my website address should go behind that circle. But I wouldn't put it in the actual design. So I would download it as a PNG and upload it to my LinkedIn. Okay, so to recap, I have 5 top tips for your killer resume. The first was to use a simple, consistent color palette. I was quite conservative here. You could go many more colors, but I'd like you to keep in mind that recruiters see a lot of candidate information. Make it easy as possible to scan quickly and to keep it easy to read. It should be strong in color and high in contrast, and save any of the lighter pastel colors for decorative, less important details. And depending on the industry, I often recommend keeping the resume's background white because some recruiters will print them out. That might be an old school thing to happen that might not be relevant in your industry, but I've definitely, even in design jobs, had recruiters print out a black and white of my resume, and then my beautiful design sort of gets lost and it becomes quite illegible. Consider hierarchy. That's my second tip. So make sure you're thinking about what's most important. If you think about that recruiter only having a few seconds to look at the first page, make sure they see the most important stuff. Bullet points, line spacing, and larger text are your friends here. Keep everything else, that nice to have information, smaller and on the second page if you manage to keep their attention for longer. Use white space. That's my third. This always makes scanning information easier. It also means when you do use a bold block color, like this blue box for the contact, it really stands out. Again, make sure you're using a good sense of hierarchy to what you use to highlight in this way. And it only works if you're standing out one feature, not if everything's competing for space and attention at the same time. My fourth tip is to visualize data for easy consumption. Pie charts and these simple infographics add a lot of visual interest. They can make it look more fun and creative. And we have many templates that actually already include them. You don't have to make them yourself like I did. Yeah, think about all the text that those recruiters wade through. If you can illustrate those key skills in interesting ways, do it. Just be sure that it's not so dominant that it sort of overtakes and makes it look cluttery. And 5, think about your whole brand. Lee, our test case, is a creative guy, and he really wants to apply for roles at places that value his creativity. He wants to make sure this comes across, and his resume is only one opportunity to show this. He has his photography on Instagram, his personality and TikTok and YouTube can be seen there. His professional academic history is on LinkedIn. He has his creative ideas on a Dribble account and his blog. There's so many avenues to show more about yourself. And as Emily said, there is so much public content, and all of that public content by you or about you should feel like a consistent story that you're telling. So my top 5 tips for a killer resume. Good luck on your journey. What do you think, Emily? How did I do?
As I said, I loved it. That was awesome.
Would Lee get the job?
Lee would get the job. I would hire him in a heartbeat. There's a lot of questions coming through around the hierarchy as well. And as you've done here, it is really important to put your most recent experience at the top of your resume. That's a big one. And if you do have lots of years of experience and multiple roles to list, I always recommend those top 3 roles as you've done here. And then you can list some of those older roles as just a list. You don't need to go into the detail, but absolutely love, as I said, that there's really key impact statements there under each of those role titles, and starting with the most recent. And it's really easy to go directly to the most impactful projects and the most impactful things that Lee has done. So love it. So I think we're passing over to Jordi now to go through video resumes.
So building on what Emily and Hannah have already built the foundations for. So you've thought about it, you've made your resume, you've got it ready, you're like, maybe I need an extra piece, and that final piece could be a video resume. A lot of places now are starting to ask for video resumes just as like an extra application, or even places I've noticed like TikTok who are hiring, they actually asked for just video resumes on their own. I've got a really cool hyperreel here of all of our newly launched video resume templates. So I'm gonna give that a play. So we're excited to make a video resume. Resumes are your blurbs and video resumes are your elevator pitch. And that essentially just means that, you know, a resume is all written word and it gives you a really in-depth outline of all of your experience and your education and who you are. And then if you hand over a video resume, so it's like your short, punchy version of your digital resume, but it's also a way for recruiters to physically see you, like see who you are beyond just words written on a page, or maybe like a single photo that you might have of yourself. So it's a really good first place to say hello. So a couple of things to consider before you jump into Canva is just making sure that the footage you get of yourself that will go in this video resume is really on point and the most professional it can possibly be. So it's really important to frame yourself, making sure that, you know, just like I am and every other presenter on this panel is sitting nice center of frame, you've got a good amount of space around you. It's easy to see you, you can see your face, shoulders, usually don't go much lower than this, but you can, I guess, if you want to go a bit wider on your shot. Natural lighting, so if you're near a window or outside or just close to anywhere where the sun is, that's your best possible lighting. If not, you can always pop on a couple of extra lights or get a lamp going if you need it. Having a killer interview outfit. So it's pretty important to make sure that, because recruiters are seeing this and they're seeing you for the first time, you should probably dress the exact same way you would if it was an interview itself. So like me today, I'm wearing my killer interview outfit, hoping it gets me hired. So the next thing that's really, really important is having a script. So just how Hannah outlaid before, she said that you need to make sure that you write out everything in your Google Doc or your notes before you jump in and make your actual resume. Exactly the same for video resume. So making sure that you have a script keeps you concise, clear, and make sure that you're not taking too much time waffling or getting lost. I love a good script. I'm actually using one right now. And the last one, take it from the top. So the good thing about making a video resume in Canva is you can have as many takes as you want or as you need, and you can pause in between filming, which is really, really important and really good. And yeah, just take as many takes as it needs because you want this to be the best possible version of yourself that you're sharing with recruiters. So the first thing you'll probably do when you jump in here, you'll probably look up video templates. So you'll probably have a quick look through all of the video resumes. So I will be making a video resume for Lee, who Hannah already made a resume for. So we're just going to continue on with that lane of thinking. So thinking about Lee, he seems to be a pretty serious guy, but he's a bit more creative. He's trying to break out. So he probably wants something a bit more straight, but has a good space of flair in it. And you'll notice that this video resume is a whole bunch of slides. So it looks just like a presentation. And essentially that's what it is. So a video resume in Canva is a presentation, and then you speak over the top of it. So you put a recording of yourself essentially in the corner, just you speaking through all of the slides, almost as if you were like presenting it yourself. So I've got one I prepared here earlier. So looking at this first slide, doesn't quite fit what Hannah had in our last resume. So let's quickly jump in. Let's start to change the colors, make sure they fit with what we had going on before. So I guess the other thing to keep in mind, which Hannah really banged home, is just you really want to make sure that your branding is consistent and you want to keep everything exactly the same, whether it's, you know, your LinkedIn, your Instagram, your resume, your video resume, your logo, your business card, your header, your car detailing, whatever you use to brand yourself, you want to make sure that everything is nice and consistent. So I prepared this one earlier and I've already switched it over. So for this, another really important part to remember, after you've picked a template, you've jumped in, You've got everything ready to go. So your script is really, really important. So another thing that I like to do and that I think is really, really good before you start recording or anything. So that script that we were talking about before, if you go into the bottom left-hand corner here where it says notes, you can actually write notes for every single slide, right? And these notes will then appear when you go into record, which is really, really useful to keep you on track. But the good thing is I can also use this really quickly to update any information that might be in here. So I'm literally just copy and pasting. Beautiful. The other thing you might want to do is add a couple of elements. So the good thing about having a video resume is every single section of your resume now has the chance to have motion, to have bits and pieces that move, that have emphasis. It can be its own like living thing, and you can go pretty wild with it, or you can keep it very, very pared back. So I was looking at a couple of the different graphics and stuff. I went in here and I was looking at blobs because I wanted to have something that was kind of modern, but not quite an image or a picture, but just had a bit of a flow and a feel to it and was animated. Also, a hot tip. So if you go up here in the right-hand corner where this little like button is, if you click animated down here and apply filters, it'll come up with all of your little like animated elements, which is really useful. So maybe we will grab, let's grab this one. This one's nice. Just scale it down, pop it in the corner. I feel like Lee might be the sort of guy who really likes nature. It feels very like sea, nature, quite interesting. So the next step that you might want to look at is animating your whole piece before you start recording. So if you come up here in the left-hand corner to the animate tab, so this animate tab essentially can animate everything that's on this slide. And you can use this for pretty much any Canva doc, by the way, provided it's not printed. So if you want to just see what if you wanted to demo what an animation will look like, you can literally just hover over the top and it will show you. So now would be a good time to just kind of like go through, have a think, be like, you know, how do I want to show myself? What do I want to show about myself? You know, am I wild? Am I quiet? Am I reserved? Do I like breathing? So I think this block one, this feels very like bold, strong, quite creative, very modern. So I'll probably pick this one. So click on it to select it and then, oh, excellent. It was already selected, but there's apply to all pages down the bottom here. If you tick this, it should now, if you notice, it'll be on every single page, which is really, really useful. So now the next step, you've got everything in, you've got your script, you've got it all good to go, all your information, all your branding, everything's animated, and you're like, it is ready. Now is the time. Now's the time to start recording. So you want to come up here in the right-hand corner to present and record. You want to go to, ooh, that's a recording from earlier. I'll delete that one. We'll pretend like it didn't happen. You'll want to go to the recording studio. Make sure your hair's done. You're all ready. Okay, there we go. So now would be a good time to just check center of frame, everything, like you don't have anything too wild going on in the background. And now would be a good time to hit start recording. Hello, I'm Lee Andrews. Not really, but you can all pretend that I am the amazing Lee. I am a creative marketing assistant who loves working within a team to drive extraordinary marketing results. I would like to apply for the full-time assistant marketing position. So just now I went up into the right-hand corner and I paused because I don't actually have any more script, would you believe? So I've stopped for a second, and this pause function means that I can now take a time, take a second, have a drink of water, go answer the door, go do other things, come back, continue on with my script, and eventually I'll be done, right? If I hit resume, it'll done will change into finish recording, or we can just hit done. So now the recording is being uploaded. You're all finished. You're all ready. It's beautiful. It's perfect. All right. So now it's exported out a video. That's what this link is, and also this download. So you can either download this video, or you can take this link, and what I like to do with it for my reel personally in my resume is I pop that link in the top of my resume. You can pop it in your cover letter, you can put it on your LinkedIn, you could put it on your social media, pretty much anywhere, and anyone will be able to access it and see how amazing and wonderful and perfect you are for the job. All right, so the very last few things. You've made your resume, you've recorded it, you've done it, it's beautiful, it's perfect, you've got the link, you've sent it out into the world. So now would probably be a very good time to just wrap up everything that we talked about. So you want to make sure when you record that you frame yourself and use really good lighting, kill a wardrobe. You want to make sure that you have a script ready to go. You can pop it in the notes section. You also want to find the perfect template and make sure all the branding is on point. Last thing that you should really be thinking about is just recording yourself. Really take your time. You can always pause whenever you need. And very, very last thing, go out there. Nail that job application. You've got everything you need to start right now. That's it. Thank you so much for your time.
I loved it. I think that looks so good, and it really complements the first resume. So keeping that nice kind of color tone shining through is awesome. It's also great to see that you kind of split out the work experience, education, and skills onto different pages. Whilst we like to keep the resume a bit more condensed, video resumes are a bit more the opposite, and we like to see less text on each page and keep that a bit more simplified. And remember that you can talk through those points that's on the screen and elaborate that little bit more. So I love to see the flow from the resume through to the video resume, and I love to see that breakdown and all of those visuals to complement it. I would definitely hire Lee with both the killer resume and killer video resume.
I'm tired. We've done it. Thank you.
I've got a quick question for you, Hannah. What fonts are good to use for your resume? What would you suggest as your...
Oh, good question. I just used what the template had, which was Martel Heavy for the really big title of his name. And the body copy was Arimo or Aramo. But it doesn't really matter as long as the smaller text, the body copy, is very, very legible. So I wouldn't recommend a script, anything very fine or curly. You can show personality with like a scripty, calligraphy, hand brush font in the big heading because it's so big, it's going to be legible. But make sure it's a really legible font for the small text. So something like a Times New Roman for something more traditional. So it's a serif font. It's more like what you'd see in a newspaper, or something very modern and sans serif. So it doesn't have the little extra formal pieces on it, like Open Sans or Arial or something like that. So I would stay pretty conservative with the text that needs to be read, but you can get more creative with the big things.
Amazing. Thank you. Back to you, Emily.
Thank you. So I know that looking for a new role can be quite time intensive. So make sure that you are doing your research and you're only applying to employers you really want to work for. My advice here is to lead with the company's values. If a company's guiding principles and values are vastly different from your own, it can be challenging to find long-term fulfillment and that long-term job satisfaction. At Canva, we are really proud of our amazing inclusive culture and how we live and breathe our values and look for people who value our values as much as we do. Luckily, there is no shortage of information these days. So check employee review sites. So Glassdoor, you can browse LinkedIn's company pages, and there are lots of different career sites out there. And that'll help you get a glimpse into a company's values. And make sure you are only applying to those ones who you do feel really aligned to and where you do feel a connection to the mission and the purpose. And remember that there may be a few no's and you might have to kiss a few frogs before you find your dream company. But each rejection or bad interview is just a step towards your big yes. Whenever I face any rejection in any aspect of my life, I always think back to a story from our founder, Mel. She was rejected by over 100 investors before we got our big break. So keep on keeping on, and before you know it, you'll be in that dream role. So I will pass back over to Jess to talk to the Canva space. But yeah, that's all from me. Thank you so much for listening to all of my tips.
Well, before I wrap up, I do want to say a big thank you to all of you on our panel today. There was so much goodness and information there that was really useful to our viewers, and there's lots of thanks coming through the chat. And also I'd like to thank you for going into the question panel there, and you answered so many questions. We had a lot of interest and so many questions about different things to do on resumes, and you've been jumping in there and really giving people a lot of answers as well. So thank you for that. If you do want to come to more Canva Space webinars, there are new webinars every single week. So please hop on to canva.com/Canva-space, and I am putting that link in the chat right now. And you click on see event schedule and you will see all of the webinars coming up for the next month or so. So do book into those, and we hope to see you at another Canva Space webinar. We also have another place I'd love you to check out, and that is our Canva Design Circle. So this is our community group for everyone who loves Canva, currently over 130,000 members and growing all of the time. And I am constantly blown away by what I see in this group. It is a super supportive group. People share their designs to get feedback. There's lots of inspirational content on there. People have done things with Canva that I didn't even know were possible. So if you love Canva, that is definitely the group for you. Facebook.com/groups/Canva Design Circle. And then one more thing we would like to ask of you is for your feedback. So you can use this QR code. Someone was asking about QR codes earlier. There's actually a QR code maker in Canva, which is what I use to make this QR code. You just go down the left panel, press more, and there's a whole bunch of apps and integrations there. One of them is a QR code maker, so you can go and make your own QR codes. You can use this one quickly to get to our 1-minute feedback form, or you can just use that link. We'd love to hear from you, not only about today's session, but of future sessions that you would love to see coming out of Canva Space. This is your opportunity to have your say. And with that, I would like to say again, thank you very much to Emily, Jordi, and Hannah. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today. And we've pretty much taken it right to the end of today's session. So we won't go with any questions today, but thank you for everyone answering so many in the chat. And I hope to do another version of this webinar in another 6 months or so. So stay tuned, and we'll have even more Canva goodness to share with you to help you make your amazing templates and your amazing resumes. So thank you. I'll let everyone just sign off and say goodbye.
Thanks, team. It was a real pleasure. Thanks for joining in.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you. It was wonderful seeing everyone.
Brilliant. See you at the next one. Thanks for joining. Bye-bye.